Welcome everyone to Red Spotlight Entertainment. Also, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'm not quite sure when exactly this podcast is going to drop. I suspect perhaps New Year's Eve, considering that our most recent one that we recorded will probably drop on Christmas Eve. So I'm thinking this will be the New Year's Eve show. And if that's the case, this might be the last one of the year. So that isn't to say that we won't do any more recordings throughout these next 2 weeks, but I'm thinking this might be the last one scheduled for 2023. And wow, that's something I didn't realize we were doing until just now. I'm Alexis Soto. This is David Francisco. This is Red Spotlight, the show that brings you everything coming out of the world of movies and more, as we have been doing for seemingly so many years now. And today we're going to discuss two films. David saw Wonka, the film by Paul King and starring Timothée Chalamet, and we're going to discuss that in all its glory, as well as Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which I suspect not as many people are watching that as Wonka, and that should tell you everything about the state of comic book movies these days, if that's what's going on, as well as, you know, the latest news coming out of awards season. Here we are with Red Spotlight number 467. David, I cannot believe we're at the end of the year. I cannot believe this is already the last podcast of the year. It's kind of blowing my mind how it all just kind of came and went. It feels like just yesterday we just began doing our reactions to Ahsoka. That was months ago, and yet here we are and everything. So, you know, I just wanted to say off the bat, I wanted to just bow my hat to you, just give you all of my appreciation, because what you have been able to help the show this year is probably the biggest leap we've had in quite some time. You know, everybody that is involved on this show does it because it's just a place for us to have fun and have, you know, really just cool, sometimes spirited, sometimes passionate, sometimes heated conversations about things that we all love, which is movies. And we've been doing it for a long time now on audio. But one of the things that just seemingly no one took the initiative to try and do was to get on video and everything. And it's not the hardest thing in the world. It's just that, you know, with us, we've had such bad luck over the years of just things malfunctioning left and right. So no one even wanted to bother with doing anything like that. But I have to say that I really, really have loved how it's been coming out. That isn't to say that it can't be better down the line, but where we are right now, I'm really, really just appreciating it. And I'm just, me as somebody who has, you know, been doing this show for a long time, it adds another dimension to be able to sit down and actually watch this podcast. And watch our faces and our reactions more than just listening to it. At the same time, of course, we do have that audio option that will always be there for people that just want to. And sometimes I switch on and off, whether I'm watching it on the TV or I'm actually listening to the audio. But I just love that we get to have that. And I also, because we've been able to do, you know, the video component now, we've also been able to open the door to reaction videos for Red Spotlight, which we've done with Ahsoka, which we've done with Doctor Who, and what you're beginning to do now with Percy Jackson. And I just feel like that's kind of, I feel like we kind of missed an opportunity to do that a few years ago, because you and I particularly have reacted. Well, not reacted, but we have reviewed a lot of shows. Yeah. Like all the Marvel shows. I think we first started reacting to shows with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. In 2020. It was the last season. And then after that, we just kept reviewing basically all the MCU Disney Plus shows on a week-to-week basis. And I kind of feel like if there was one thing I could change in the last few years, it'd be to get to this sooner. That way we could have gotten all of this sooner on video. You know?
For sure. Especially when we would actually react to WandaVision together. Like we would actually get on Skype.
We actually did that. Yes, we watched WandaVision together as friends. That was like one of the only ones, if not the only one, that all of us experienced together, because it was that big of a show.
For sure, and I would have loved to get our reactions for that one too. Because I mean, we kind of stay quiet just for most of it and all, but like I know if we had it like on video, we would have been like talking and talking and just
Yeah.
throughout the entire episode. So that would have been a lot more fun. But yeah, no, it's also been fun for me. And you mentioned, I do want to get better at these, especially for the reaction
Even the
videos.
Clone Wars, we got together for the Clone Wars reactions too. I'm not sure if we oh my god.
I think it was you and Alexis. I missed out because I had to work.
You missed out, but Kyle was there. Kyle, Alexis, and yeah, we did the Clone Wars reactions for the last 4 episodes. Those were fun.
Yeah. Oh man, we would have been a whole lot more fun than WandaVision. For sure.
Yeah, because Clone Wars came first, and then Shield, and then after that, 21 came all the other stuff. So,
yeah. And then you mentioned, how I would like to improve on these too, especially if we ever do a movie reaction. Those ones I really want to put time to like edit them down or something.
Yeah, because we had been flirting with doing one, which was Little Mermaid. Alexis is not here and has not been here because scheduling. It's the end of the year, and she's always seemingly out of town. And if she's not out of town, she's unconscious because she's that tired. I don't know how she gets the energy to do as much as she does. Like, I don't know how she has the energy to leave town as much as she does. But you got to hand it to her. She does it one way or the other. And there's things that she's seen that we've been meaning to talk on the show. Like, since the last time Alexis was here, The Crown dropped its final 5 episodes, I think, or 6 episodes of season 6, and there's so much to say about that, but we can't really touch on that until Alexis, and of course she's going through Crown withdrawals. She's been getting the same videos on my TikTok and Instagram feeds of just like clips from the show, and it's just like, should I watch the show again? I don't know. It's like it's that thing of like, and I personally, the more removed I am from it, I really loved the series finale. I kind of thought it was a really good place to stop. And I feel like the overall, my feeling is, are there things that they could have done a 7th and 8th season? Duh. There's plenty of things left to cover, but I think where they stopped was actually kind of beautiful, because there's moments there. And I want to be clear here. It's like I'm talking about the fictionalized version of this show. I don't mean the real people. So like, there's moments that happen here that, let's say, a character finally gets to be happy in a way. He gets permission to be happy, which is something that character has been like longing for the entirety of the series. So I don't know, where did you leave off on this show? You were seasons behind, weren't you?
I think I'm in the middle of the second to the last season.
5?
Yeah.
Did you start with Imelda Staunton as the queen now?
Yeah.
Or was it Olivia Colman still?
No, not Olivia Colman. No.
It was the older one.
Yeah.
That's Imelda Staunton.
Yeah, I remember.
Imelda, by the way, who I found out, because it's funny, I watched The Crown, and then after that, immediately turned on Paddington. Imelda Staunton is the voice of Aunt Lucy on the Paddington movies.
Oh,
so it's just I love that connection from like bouncing from one to the other. And I'm sure that wasn't the only connection, because there's so many British actors in Paddington, in all Paddington movies. I still, by the way, I'm just sorry. I can't get over how great Hugh Grant and Brendan Gleeson were in Paddington 2. Every time they popped on screen, I think the best movie ever. Best picture, honestly, nominated worthy, I would say. But what was I saying? Yeah, even that, I feel like The Crown is a harder show to react to, because it's so it drops all at once. Yeah, versus the week to week shows. Like, I was happy that we got the Doctor Who episodes, which now that I'm remembering, we may have something to react to, because on Christmas Day, they're gonna have the Christmas special with Chudi Gatwa as the Doctor now.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I know, so I guess we're gonna have to find time, 26, 20, whatever it is, to do that.
Yeah.
That reaction for it. So yeah, it is something of a missed opportunity, but I'm enjoying them now, and even with Ahsoka, which was horrendous.
Oh yeah, that was
Absolutely
tough.
horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
It was tough to get through. But you know what? Not once did we mention an actual good Star Wars show, the best Star Wars show of the year, Bad Batch. Go watch Bad Batch. That's an actual good show. It had some really amazing moments. I
Mm-hmm.
actually was just going through my Twitter timeline or X timeline, whatever you want to call it. And somebody was basically they had the clip of the moment from that episode with Crosshair, the Crosshair episode when he kind of turns.
Yeah.
In that moment when he kills his commanding officer. He's one of the biggest dicks in the history of Star Wars, and how much of a cheer out loud moment that was. So yeah, that's that whole situation. But now you and Alexis are reacting to, how did you even do the reaction to Percy Jackson? Was she even in town?
Yeah, she was.
When did she leave?
Yes. Yeah, yesterday. Friday.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, and then the episode dropped on Wednesday. So.
Oh, you had enough time to
For sure
to do that. So you guys had your first reaction. So are they going to be dropping on Wednesdays?
No, Saturdays. Just because I need time to do the reaction.
Oh no! I mean, when did the show Percy Jackson? When do new episodes drop?
Oh, Wednesdays. Yeah, I bet.
Okay.
I thought you meant like our reaction videos.
No, you need time for that.
Yeah, you know. But yeah, no, we do the reactions on Wednesdays because that's when the episodes drop. And so far, so good with this show.
So tell me about it.
Yeah,
I heard that people, or at least fans of the show, were liking it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's basically so far pretty accurate to the books, in terms of like the story and everything, and the camp, like basically the Hogwarts, if that makes sense, of the book series. It's fantastic. It looks beautiful. Like you actually do want to be in it and all that. And I mean, everything so far has been great. Acting is great, especially with the kid actors. Like you never know what you're gonna get, but so far they've been all great. Actions looks pretty cool. I think the one thing though is that first time watching it, it felt like pretty rushed. Like they were trying to get through like exposition and everything, but it could have been rushed because I know the story. Because when I rewatched it today, I was kind of like, actually, no, this is actually a pretty good pace, I guess. I mean, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the tough part for me right now. Is just trying to like look at it as a show instead of looking at it as a book fan and all that. That's definitely a tough part for me, especially in the reaction moments. Because I remember in the second episode, we kind of didn't talk like in the middle of it for like quite a while. I mean, the whole video, we watched 2 episodes, and the whole video, our reaction video, is 35 minutes long, instead of like it should be, you know, at least like almost an hour and a half. But so yeah, that should tell you how much we didn't talk so much about the episode. But yeah, so far so good. I think, what was my one complaint? I think my one complaint in terms of them changing something is something to do with Percy's mother, and how they portrayed like his stepfather. He's like in the books, when you first meet him, he's sort of like on the verge of being abusive and all. And this one, he's just more of an annoyance in the show, and it's kind of like, oh, but it's actually like really important that you just fucking hate this guy. And all. And so but I mean, we'll see how it is. That could still happen by the end, but we'll see. But yeah, like I said, so far so good. I can't wait for the next episode, and I'm excited.
Well, it's actually interesting how this might be one of Disney's few wins this year. Because they've been, I don't have to say that they've been sucking. Everybody knows they've been sucking in no shortage of areas. But I'm hoping that the Percy Jackson fan base is activated and is here to watch them. And I'm optimistic. Well, I'm hopeful that it continues to go on. Only because, as we discussed last week, that by and large, the amount of money being put into original programming for streaming shows, it's kind of in and of itself coming to the end of an era, or if not, they're already. So it'll be interesting to see where the show goes, because the other issue is that there's also a lot of source material, from what I understand, and this very easily could be a multi-season series. So I'm just, for your sake and for the for Percy Jackson fans' sakes, I do hope that the show finds a way to. And I don't mean to talk about it as if like a second season isn't like gonna happen. It very likely can happen.
Yeah.
It's just it remains to be seen how much longer Disney Plus is, and how much more money Disney Plus is gonna put into its programming. Especially since, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 2 Marvel shows are coming out next year on Disney Plus. One being Echo, which we'll see how that is, and the other one, I'm not quite sure if it's going to be Agatha. It might very well be Agatha. I don't quite remember what it was. And then as far as Star Wars, well, there was going to be Andor. That's not happening anymore. Apparently, it was moved to 2025. So is there going to be a Star Wars show that comes out next year? Well, there is one. It's called The Acolyte, I believe. I don't know what that would look like. The quality of Star Wars shows can range drastically, as a matter of fact. So it we'll see what kind of reaction that it gets. But they have to. I hope that they see that they have something with Percy Jackson.
Yeah,
it's important to keep it alive.
For sure. And I mean, the thing though, Rick Riordan himself has been keeping it alive for like the longest time, and so he just wants to keep doing that too. He wants to give it to new audiences and everything, and not just like with his Percy Jackson books, but like, he does some spin-off stuff, doing Egyptian mythology, one of those Norse mythology, and then he has his all Rick Riordan Presents line, which is like other authors write about their own cultures and make some kind of like Percy Jackson-esque style of book. So like he's really trying to like keep it alive and all. And then I referenced Harry Potter. Like they have this can be their Harry Potter for Disney, like they have something big going on. There's a big fan base for this. Like just put in the time and you'll have something big. The thing though is that they need to announce it now, because even my sister mentioned it, like when you see the guy playing Percy like in the show but then you see him now like in press tours, dude hit a growth spurt, his voice is getting deeper already. Like they need to announce second season yesterday.
It's a whole Shazam situation, because those kids grew up a lot from Shazam 1 to Shazam 2.
Yeah. The thing though is that with shows, like you almost kind of guarantee. I know with streaming,
Stranger Things might be a bit, because those kids grew up a lot
for sure. But with TV shows, it's always just like, 5 episodes in, next year they're already making it and all that, blah blah, or next year the second season's coming out. So, but it's always tough to tell with streaming shows. Sadly.
Yeah, that's why it's like, in many ways, cable and network television were the superior model, because not that a CW version or an ABC version would be as good as this, maybe not, but if it were airing on a network, it would have to be airing every year. There would be like a time to film, and it'll be out for the broadcast season. I miss that. You know?
For sure.
We need to go back to that. And that's one of the things that I think what's one of the missteps in Disney Plus in their original programming. They should have, because I know a few months back we talked about how they were reevaluating how they were going to do Marvel shows, and that one of the ways they were going to reevaluate was, looking out for the potential of shows that could come back for regular seasons. And I'm just like, well, along with everything else, those are ideas that you should have had from the very beginning. There's no excuse for just realizing now that TV shows have the potential for going on for many, many years. Like that's a no fucking brainer. Like, and you saw it. Not that the quality on these shows are radically different in terms of what they ended up being, but there's no reason why we shouldn't have Miss Marvel and She-Hulk seasons every year.
Mm-hmm.
That should have been baked in. Like, not every show needs a season every year, not that you can afford to do it every year. But like,
you kind of have to keep it in mind, like people want to see these characters all the time, especially again with Percy Jackson. Like, you went into this with 15 books. There's 15 books in the entire series. You really didn't think like maybe we should probably prep for seasons 2 and 3. And it's also merch. Like, you have the potential to make so much money with the merch too, not just with like the Camp Half-Blood t-shirts, but like, toy swords and everything, toy shields. Like, this is just such a perfect show to make merchandise off of.
Yeah.
So it just, I feel like they're not taking full advantage of this. Which,
well, what else is new? That's what Disney does best, right? They're not taking full advantage of it. Oh, gee, go figure. I mean, go ask the Muppets how they feel. Being into the Disney monarchy and everything. Get in line, Percy Jackson. The Muppets have been waiting, and then every time they get brought out, they're like, not very good.
Yeah.
Not very good at all. I gotta say, before we move off of, before we go into something else, because there was other things I wanted to ask you. What are some of your favorite Christmas movies? Because that's not something we talk too much about on the show. But I did see that Variety had released a ranked list of sorts of the 45 best Christmas movies on there. And there were some options on there that, they're a bit debatable. You want to qualify them as Christmas movies. But that seems to be, is there a modern Christmas movie that you've seen that has resonated with you? The only one I can think of, and I cannot believe it's not discussed more often, is Klaus from Netflix.
Yeah. 1 second. You're glitching out a lot. Can we hang up and call back?
Of course. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Hopefully that's better.
How about now?
So far so good.
Okay. So, one of the things I wanted to talk about was no, we're not doing this. Yeah, I wasn't about to even go there.
What happened?
Somebody else answered the call, and I'm like, no, I don't got time to waste on you. Anyway, then Kyle picked up the call. I'm like, no, I'm not stopping the show to clarify what's going on. Anywho, even though we just did that right now, I just saw that certain people were bringing up a movie that no one ever talks about, but I gotta say, it made quite an impression on me. And it's not a film that I would necessarily think of as being a Christmas movie. But did you ever hear of the movie Last Holiday?
No.
Had Queen Latifah, LL Cool J, Timothy Hutton, Giancarlo Esposito. It was an interesting cast. This was a rom-com of sorts. It's there's a bit of romance in it, but I guess it's more of a comedy, but also a Christmas comedy. It's a mix of different things. But it came out in the year 2006, and this was actually a film that I experienced in theaters, and there was just something about its whole, I don't know, in the whole atmosphere of it, the comedy, which isn't the best comedy, but there's a charm to it in the idea that this centers on this woman who has spent her whole life working a retail job, and then she gets told that she's about to die, And so she ends up spending her life savings to go to this really fancy foreign hotel, and she ends up, you know, by her whole, you know, aura or identity or whatever you want to say, ends up hitting it off with a bunch of rich people who just expect that she's also rich because she's there and she's spending all this ridiculous amount of money. But the whole thing is about, the idea of her um, living out her final days with the money that she's earned.
Hmm.
And that sounds quite sad. And
Yeah.
it is, but it also isn't, well, the kind of movie that it is, you suspect that things aren't going to end on that much of a downbeat note, just knowing that it's a comedy. But for people who have seen it, uh, to me, it does rank among my favorite movies in that genre. And you got to keep in mind that the 2000s were infamous for this. And I think even in that same year, as a matter, you know what? Maybe it was 2007. I don't really, because the same around the time, uh, The Holiday, which is a different movie with Cameron Diaz, Jude Law, Jack Black, and Kate Winslet, that came out, and that one was a big hit. And I think when I first saw it, it was playing on, I don't know, somewhere on cable. I may have been TBS. That's another one. It's the same kind of flavor of movie, but both qualify, technically speaking, as Christmas movies because they both take place during the Christmas season. So those are not necessarily films that are discussed as often, but I do quite love in the pantheon of holiday films. Other ones I wanted to mention, as a matter of fact, this week I was rewatching it with some of my students. Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas, which is kind of a classic, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
And like when I was watching it, I was just kind of like blown away with how beautiful the animation looks, and it's just like it just makes you miss 2D animation, because this was this was something that came out I think in the late 90s, and it's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
It honestly is one of the best. I mean, to me, the look of it feels 90s, but not in a negative way. It's like there was something about 2D animation in the 90s that just got it right.
Mm-hmm.
You got it just right.
For sure.
And we kind of moved away from that because, well, 2D animation kind of went out of style, but there's plenty of examples of how amazing it can look like in recent memory. We think about the 2011 Winnie the Pooh movie, which also no one talks about, but is a very good Winnie the Pooh film. The animated sequence in Mary Poppins Returns, how beautiful the 2D animation looked there.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Boy and the Heron, which just came out, and Klaus, I believe, was also 2D animation, correct?
I think it was. No, yeah, it was 2D.
It was 2D, right?
Yeah.
So you have examples here and there of like, this is how great it can still look like.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you also just have other animated movies that are trying to incorporate both 3D and 2D animation into it, and it's a standout every single time. I actually watched the newest episodes of What If, the Marvel ones, and
okay.
Did they combine 3D and 2D in the first season? Do you remember? Because I think they for sure did that for this one. That would imply
that I would remember the first season.
Oh, okay.
I kind of forgot about it, to be honest with you.
Honestly, a part of me was going to like rewatch an episode just to see, but like I was kind of like, I watched these two, which I mean, mind you, they were pretty good. Those two episodes, I think they were far better than what they showed in the first season. But yeah, I noticed that that they added some 2D stuff into it, and I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. Like, keep it up, do that. You got something cool.
Real quick thing I wanted to add on to Percy Jackson. One other show that we should have reviewed or we should have reacted to it, but we didn't get around to doing it, and maybe we can still do this. Although you would have already seen it with Invincible season 2.
Oh yeah, you haven't seen it though.
I've not seen it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I just like it keeps getting pushed back because there's so many things to watch. I made a list for myself today and just like.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, and to be fair, although this is, I think it's on a mid-season finale, so there's more episodes to come later, kind of soon. So you can miss out. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, I mean, in terms of the Christmas movies that you're mentioning, yeah, Klaus for sure. I think that
Mickey's
might
Once
be.
Upon a Christmas. I mean, it
Hmm.
was just also what I saw last year, Muppets Christmas Carol.
Hmm. I still haven't seen it.
You haven't? Oh, you need to see it. It's a really good one. Of course, it's on Disney Plus. There, Michael Caine gives the performance of his career, in the film. Um, of course, you can't like neglect classics like Home Alone and Home
Yeah.
Alone 2: Lost in New York, which we discussed a little bit briefly last week, alongside
Elf. Hmm.
yes, Elf.
Hmm.
That's not one I'm particularly too fond of, honestly. Not because I dislike it. It's just that I don't really. That's one of the ones I didn't watch as much, but everybody loves Elf.
Hmm.
Everybody loves Elf.
Yeah, for sure. And no, I mean for recent ones, yeah, Klaus. I think that might just be my favorite Christmas movie ever.
Mm.
I also really did like what was it, Christmas Chronicles? That one I forgot when it came out. Oh, right here, I see it. 2018. That one had what's his name? Kurt Russell.
2018.
Yeah, that one had Kurt Russell in it. He plays Santa. And then this one show me and Nala watched. We actually watched it in November, but there's a show called Dash and Lily. It's a very rom-com Christmas show,
Mm-hmm.
but I loved it. Like I was obsessed with it. It was really, really good. I highly recommend that.
You see, well, I just opened up this list on Variety that I had just referenced.
Mm.
And some films, like you could just, okay, what are you doing here? They put Batman Returns.
No, stop it.
Okay. Yeah, there's some films here that I'm like, okay, this is not what this is about. Get it away from here. Get it away from me. People, what about Die Hard?
It's not a Christmas movie. I know
It's not. But people are gonna be like, but it takes place at Christmas. But you know what else takes place at Christmas? Iron Man 3.
That's true.
And I personally really like Iron Man 3. I know not everybody else does.
Mm-hmm.
The Family Stone, which I still haven't seen, but it is one of those rom-coms that people like. They put Edward Scissorhands.
No.
On the list. I'm like, okay. This one, I could buy Gremlins.
Yeah.
More than the other ones.
For
Gremlins
sure.
can work. Because, I mean, it is at Christmas time.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned, yeah, go ahead.
Have you seen the classic stop motion Christmas movies? Like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer?
Yes.
For sure.
Yes,
those ones.
Yes.
Watched it every single time.
Basically any Grinch movie, because there's the classic short animated movie, the Grinch one, and of course there's the Jim Carrey version, which depending on how old you are, either you love or you loathe with a passion. I personally, and I think on the show, on the feed somewhere, Kyle and I did an audio commentary to it. I don't know how old it is, but it's somewhere there. But it is for sure one of our favorites. It's a Wonderful Life.
I have it. I still haven't seen it.
It's a Wonderful Life. Klaus is on here, really good. Krampus, technically, I guess.
I saw Rise of the Guardians.
Let's see if it's in here. They put Love Actually, which, okay. Speaking of Hugh Grant, Miracle on 34th Street, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, which I actually haven't seen that.
I don't want to see any of those National Lampoons.
Yeah. What about The Nightmare Before Christmas?
Oh yeah, for sure. Christmas movie. That was nice. But I mean,
The Polar Express.
Polar Express. That one I was actually really into it as a kid. But not so much anymore. I mean, I still think it's a nice movie, but
yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about the animation?
I thought it was fine. You know, they were experimenting, but
The Polar Express is not one that I loved. I didn't hate it. Yeah, they put Rise of the Guardians. They put it right here. Of course, the classic Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. The Disney Santa Claus movies.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I love those ones for sure. Actually, I still haven't seen the second season, but I watched the first season of the Santa Claus show that they made.
Oh,
It was pretty cool.
Really?
Yeah.
I think that's basically it. But yeah, just some holiday stuff for you guys. They should really make more holiday movies, more Christmas movies. I mean, like, but like there hasn't been a recent one that you could like that would be considered a classic.
Mm-hmm.
They need to get on that. But they're just not.
Yeah, for sure.
And
There was one I'm trying to remember, but it like completely left my mind. Oh, here it is, A Christmas Story. The one that they show it on TBS every single year, all day, 24/7, or like 24 hours on Christmas Day. That's always so funny. And I did see the sequel for that one, which was really, really good. Honestly,
okay.
I highly recommend it.
The sequel or the remake?
It was a sequel.
Well, where is it at?
Was it HBO? I think it was HBO.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure you can look it up.
Oh, there's one that we missed, which is a combination. I think a lot of people would be like, well, "That's not good," but I don't know. It depends on your definition of good. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jingle All the Way.
Oh yeah, that's
Turbo Man. Remember how Peter was like, he wanted a Turbo Man? That was one of his, I think, movies that made an impact on him. We did a show on that a few years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a great Christmas movie. Honestly, like it's so much fun. It's so funny, and I remember he mentioned like some of the jokes don't hold up now, like, but it's hilarious.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, those are all movies worth revisiting. Too bad. I would spend more time revisiting those films if it weren't for the fact that every December I'm always preoccupied, either trying to watch all the new movies that come out or trying to catch up on movies that I had missed.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And it's ridiculous. And speaking of that, right now, for those who wanted to see, a lot of the movies that we've been talking about have just hit streaming or are in theaters. Right now, playing in theaters, you can watch a lot of movies. As a matter of fact, you've got Aquaman: The Lost Kingdom, Wonka, The Boy and the Heron. They're still playing Hunger Games. I guess if you wanted to, well, I'm not going to get into those other ones. Forget that. But you have in this coming week, The Iron Claw, which people are really looking forward to. I'm especially looking forward to seeing what Zac Efron has, because his performance especially is being praised. And it's about time he's gotten something that can really show off what he can do.
Yeah.
Next is The Color Purple, which we've been talking about on the show for how much it's being ignored or snubbed. And we've been discussing how, well, this is what happens. Well, both Iron Claw and The Color Purple have been severely underperforming. Why? Because they were the last two films to basically screen. Also, Wonka basically didn't get a chance to screen. They all came out in the last second, and that's why you've seen all three of those movies just like, where are they?
Yeah.
They're nowhere to be seen. But it looks great, that trailer. It's got a really high Rotten Tomatoes score, which makes you wonder, why were they holding the reviews back? It doesn't make any sense at all. So I'm looking forward to it because I really like the first film by Steven Spielberg. It's the same story, but it's different in a lot of ways, with the fact that this is an adaptation not of his movie, because his movie was not original. It was based off a book by Alice Walker, The Color Purple, that came out in 1984, the movie. But they turned that into a musical on Broadway, and this movie is adapting that musical. And I mean, we'll discuss Wonka, but let me just say I love musicals, and so there's a lot here to get me excited for The Color Purple. Also in theaters this week, depending on where you are, Poor Things, the latest by Yorgos Lanthimos and Emma Stone, Mark Ruffalo, Willem Dafoe, Rami Youssef. I mean, it looks spectacular. It's a really curious film because it has the weirdness of A Shape of Water. I mean, this is basically, from what I understand, they take the brain of a dead baby and they put it inside the body of a dead woman, which is Bella, the character that Emma Stone plays. It's kind of a riff on Frankenstein, and that's all I need.
Yeah.
That's all I need to go off on to watch this. But any image that has been released out of this in the trailer, there's so much detail in the production design and the costumes and the whole look of the world. It's like, imagine if a Wes Anderson film was really good. Not to say that Wes Anderson makes bad movies, but I will say that lately his films have been too esoteric and too difficult, I would say, to decipher what's on there in ways that I don't think necessarily make for the best of viewing experiences. And to be clear, I'm referring to his two most recent films, and I'm still a big fan of the Grand Budapest Hotel. Like I that's a legitimately great movie. But I don't want to like cap or not cap. I don't want to like crap on. Said cap. I don't want to crap on Wes Anderson fans, but like this to me has the look of a Wes Anderson film, but it might actually have like some entertaining and actual substance in there. And that his most recent film, Asteroid City, it did have substance in there for sure. He was clearly getting at something. What that was and how to put that into words, I can't tell you. I did see Asteroid City, and I thought it looked beautiful. There's not much more I can tell you about that one. We may have discussed that a few months back on the show. But that's coming to theaters, as well as American Fiction somewhere. I don't know where, but it will be playing. And then as far as streaming is concerned, on Netflix, got a couple of ones. I think right now you can watch May December, which has been getting a lot of nominations, and it's been out for 2 weeks now. You can also watch Maestro, or Maestro, depending on who says it. It's the latest film by Bradley Cooper, which stars Bradley Cooper and Carey Mulligan, and it's supposed to be about the life, maybe not about the life, but about the relationship between Leonard Bernstein and his wife. Leonard Bernstein, of course, being a famous composer who most famously composed the music to West Side Story, among other things. So, also on Amazon Prime, it just dropped and people are already reacting like crazy to it. Emerald Fennell's new film, Saltburn, which had a brief theatrical run, is now on there. Peter and I think we got a chance to see it. I talked about it a few weeks ago, briefly. And I'm waiting on bated breath for both of you guys to watch that film. And also, Anatomy of a Fall did drop on digital VOD for those who want to rent it. That's also an option. So I wanted to keep you guys posted. I mean, and do I need to tell you? Like, that's a lot of movies.
Yeah.
Already. Like that is so many movies. It is like how. Well, I don't even. That's a really dumb question to ask. No one really is, unless you're a film critic who was invited to the premieres or got a screener a long time ago and has already seen these movies and has already reviewed these movies. If you're just like a regular person like we are, well, we're not regular people, I should say, a regular film fan that tries and goes and sees as much as possible, it is an overwhelming time. Like, I don't know what happened, but like November and December was like, maybe not all of November, but like, well, I guess you can say, yeah, November and December were like, they all came out at the same time. And I'm like, where were you guys in October? Where were you guys in September? Where were you guys in August? Like, those were months that had kind of nothing. Like, what in those 3 months, what did we get? Mutant Mayhem and Flower Moon? That was it.
Yeah.
I had enough time to see Flower Moon 5 different times.
Flower Moon, people.
Yeah, basically. But I'm saying, I know. You're, because it's how many hours is that?
It's 4 hours, isn't it? Or...
altogether? No.
Oh,
do the actual math on it. So it's like 3 times 5, that's 15. But we didn't add in the half hours, so that would be 15, 16, 7, maybe 17 and a half hours.
Mm-hmm.
That is a sad statement. I just shouldn't have done the math on that. But that goes to show you that there wasn't really much else that was happening. So I don't know. They need to start looking again at these release schedules. I just think it is too overwhelming for people to actually like go and watch as many of them as they can. It's just not practical. And then also because a lot of these films are made in large part to win awards, it's not in any way or in any sense of the word smart to, if your film is going to open theatrically or drop on streaming in the month of December, and if you want that movie to be seen for awards consideration, you need to, I don't know, make sure the people who need to see it, which are the critics, who are very important in spreading the word of mouth, and number 2, the industry voters and the group's voters, to see it. And if they don't, it doesn't exist. That's just how it works. Why do you think Zac Efron is not in contention for Best Actor? Why do you think Color Purple has missed out on Best Picture nominations left and right? So that's what it is. I wanted to just take this moment and take a step back. Because this year, Decembers are always interesting months when, for what movies come out. I think back to, let me see here. 2021 was a nice December because that was the month that both West Side Story and Nightmare Alley came out. And also, I know not everyone will agree on this. You can drop this into the kind of movies that everybody hates, but I love. The Matrix 4 by Lana Wachowski, I thought was like an amazing blockbuster in that it was a big fuck you to the way that blockbusters are made today. And I loved it very much for that. That also came out that year. At that time, I should say Spider-Man, but I don't care about Spider-Man No Way Home. So there's that. What was it called? December 2018 was fun because that gave us Bumblebee. It gave us Mary Poppins Returns. It gave us Aquaman, and it gave us Into the Spider-Verse.
Damn.
that was a big December. And keep in mind, at one point, I think it got moved up because it came out earlier in the year. But at one point, they were going to have Solo open in December and not in May. But they moved it up because they wanted to say, oh, we open on May 25th. A lot of good that did them.
Yeah.
So Decembers are usually and of course, I didn't even mention 2015 or 2018. No, scratch that. 2015 or 2017, which both had The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, which, I mean, great. I should kind of mention 2019, although that was a mixed bag because that was Rise of Skywalker. That was not very good. But it did give us Cats, which, in fairness, is also terrible, but it was a good viewing experience. It was entertaining. So, but looking at the movies that I just mentioned, what are the ones that you're looking forward to seeing out of all of these?
Oh, American Fiction.
New ones. American Fiction, yeah.
For sure. I am kind of looking forward to Color Purple. Still need to see. I still want to watch the original before watching this one. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how that goes.
It's on our Vudu Movies Anywhere, so if you got it's on there. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, which reminds me, I gotta watch that too. I need to rewatch that movie. I will say I want to get to some of the reactions that I've been seeing coming out of Bradley Cooper's new movie. And I want to just say on Bradley Cooper, I think he is a phenomenal talent. I think he's an amazing actor. And I think he's been nominated the appropriate amount of times that he's needed to. If anything, like how Alexis and I mentioned a few weeks ago on the show, if there was a performance that he should have won for, it would be for Silver Linings Playbook. I thought that, first of all, I love that movie. And I think he's amazing in it. But when you're up against, I gotta say, I think maybe he was third in that category, because I think Hugh Jackman in Les Mis was amazing. He probably also could have won, but they both lost to Lincoln, Daniel Day-Lewis. So you can't, there was no way around it. You know, it was, and you know, in all fairness, Les Mis and Silver Linings Playbook both won Oscars that night, because that was the first win by Jennifer Lawrence that won Best Actress for that movie, and then also Anne Hathaway that won Best Supporting Actress for Les Mis. So they didn't walk away empty-handed. So that's something. But as far as Bradley Cooper is concerned, I just think like anything and everything he does, even anything that he pops into is kind of great. I think the one that I wasn't crazy about was American Sniper. I just don't care for that movie. I mean, it's fine. I just don't really care about it. It's not one that I care to think about.
Oh yeah, I mean, any movie kind of like that, it's kind of, they're all kind of the same. You know, they can all give a good performance. I saw The Covenant. That
The
one
Covenant.
Isn't that what it's called? I could be wrong.
It might be. I'm not even sure what you're referring. Who was in the movie?
I'm not good with names.
Okay, maybe I shouldn't have asked that question. When did it come out?
Yeah, Covenant came out this year. Jake Gyllenhaal.
Okay, I don't think I've heard of it.
Oh yeah, Guy Ritchie's The Covenant.
Okay. I know Guy Ritchie. Okay.
I mean, basically, like movies like that, they're all kind of the same, but like you can always expect a great performance, a pretty good story, and all that. So I can understand why you're kind of like not that big about it.
Yeah, but of course, American Hustle, he was great.
Nightmare Alley.
That one, I gotta say, might be my favorite of his
for sure.
And I gotta say, it is a miracle that Nightmare Alley got as many nominations as it did, because people were shocked that it even got Best Picture or even got anything. And I guess you could say that was the power of Del Toro. It would have been nice if that was reciprocated with Pinocchio, but it was an animated film, so that was a TKO. You're not even allowed in. Whatever. But Nightmare Alley, Bradley Cooper, that performance might be my favorite of his, and it should have gotten nominated for Best Actor, and it was nowhere to be seen.
I mean, the ending of that movie should have won him that Oscar. Like,
I know. What happened? You know what it was? What happened? The reason why it didn't get any traction is because nobody saw it. It bombed at the box office, and I'm sorry to say that the Academy thinks too much of itself to be seen awarding films that had bad box office headlines like that, which is insane, because you shouldn't take that into consideration into a contest that supposedly is about what's the best of the best. Quantifying box office into this conversation, to me, that's a conversation that is more interesting than award shows having categories like box office achievement. Like, we know that's dumb. We know why they're doing it. The more interesting conversation is, why do we allow the people in the industry to use the box office as some kind of metric for who to support and who to ignore? You know, that just seems particularly icky, because what you're communicating to me is, well, if the general audience ignored certain movies, then we can't be seen highlighting them, because that makes us look irrelevant. Now, they don't do this for all of the films. They pick and choose which ones, because not every movie that gets nominated makes a lot of money, but it just depends on like the stroke of the luck, apparently. And for whatever reason, Nightmare Alley, and it also came out really late into the year, and it came out opposite Spider-Man. Nobody was seeing it because they were all watching Spider-Man, and at that point, people had moved on to other things. And I'm like, but Bradley Cooper should have freaking been nominated at the very least. And I'm thinking he probably should have won. If not, but that year was one of those years where a lot of particular nominations landed in a way where I'm not very happy with. Like, that whole category didn't include Nicolas Cage. It did not include Hidetoshi Nishijima from Drive My Car. It did not that was the same year. So it's like, and of course that was the year that Will Smith won, which Could have been avoided if you had just given it to Bradley Cooper. I'm just saying. But anyway, we shouldn't, of course, neglect his amazing vocal performance as Rocket Raccoon, which I forget sometimes that he is Rocket Raccoon. I'll be honest with you. But I mean, it's funny how some people were, this is why I mean that Maestro is getting an interesting reaction. There were some people who were like joking, but not joking when they were saying that they wouldn't mind if Bradley Cooper was nominated for Best Actor for playing Rocket versus his performance in Maestro, which I wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
I mean, Rocket was a big part of Guardians 3. You could argue that was his movie in a lot of ways, and it was a beautiful, heartbreaking performance, with him involved in a lot of those sequences. Which, also by the way, Guardians 3 is still one of my favorite movies of the year. I'm not saying it's my favorite of the year, but it's still really up there. But again, because we're in, the Batman didn't get nominated, this is not going to get nominated. And I'm not saying it should be. I'm just saying like it's great, and we should discuss it. For some things, we shouldn't forget A Star Is Born, which not only did he star in, but he directed, and I thought that was incredible. Did you watch it?
No.
You never watched A Star Is Born?
No.
That is interesting. Okay. Well, it's very good. But it also is, I guess, to an extent, conventional, but it was superbly directed. But a lot of people were, that was his first movie. And I've noticed that some people have a bone to pick with Bradley Cooper because of how thirsty he is for getting an Oscar. And he's even said in some interviews that he felt embarrassed that the Academy snubbed him in Best Director. And I'm like, a couple of things. Did he deserve to get snubbed? Probably not. I think the direction was definitely good enough to warrant a nomination. I think what ultimately happened, which was revealed, is the director's branch of the Academy, because you got to remember that the Academy at large, not every single voter decides what the nominees are. They gatekeep, which is the directors decide who are the 5 directors that get nominated. The costume people decide who are the nominees. The visual effects people decide who are the nominees. Then when it comes to the voting for the winners, all of the Academy gets to vote on all the different categories. But from what I hear from Gold Derby is that the directors are very territorial, and especially gatekeepy about particularly allowing actors who are primarily actors but have also proven to be directors, and they don't like to nominate actors in the director's branch. Although Greta Gerwig herself was an actor, and she's gotten in at least once and probably will get in again, but that's beside the point. This also explains why Ben Affleck didn't get into Best Director for Argo, even though he was getting in and winning everywhere else that year. So he very clearly wants it, and I think he really wants to be a great filmmaker. And Maestro seems a departure for what we would think this kind of movie would look like and sound like, because this feels, well, if you read what this movie is about, you'd think it's a biopic, right, of Leonard Bernstein. Okay, well, we've been talking about on this show for years now that kind of movie is so just, it's been done. Done to death. But it's been getting nominated everywhere. In fact, both the Golden Globes and the Critics' Choice nominated Bradley Cooper for Best Director. In addition, of course, to him being in for Best Actor and all these other categories. And it's gotten into Best Picture everywhere. So it's like, okay, well, it also happens to be produced by Steven Spielberg and Martin Scorsese. So that's 2 big names attached to it. In fact, Spielberg did an interview with Cooper on Netflix, and I think it was revealed that at some point Spielberg was considering directing this movie himself, and I think he ended up pulling out, but then really liked what Bradley Cooper wanted to do with it. But I have been seeing some interesting reactions. People either love it or very much don't love the movie. And I've been seeing some accusations of the film being all like style, but kind of empty, which is worrying me because that's not very good. I don't do very well with that kind of stuff. But let me see. Let me read you what I've been seeing here. This is Keith McNally, NYC. He says, Maestro is a well-intentioned film, but extremely hollow. People bang on about how much Bradley Cooper looks like Leonard Bernstein, as if the criteria of a film's greatness is impersonation. One of the many reasons why Maestro doesn't work is because on concentrating on Bernstein's physical details, Cooper has left out the essence of the genius. You can learn more about Leonard Bernstein by watching 5 minutes of an interview with the great Stephen Sondheim talk about his imperfect relationship with Bernstein on YouTube than the whole 2 hours and 9 minutes of Maestro. Maestro is a well-intentioned film that ends up being vain and mediocre and saying very little about Bernstein and everything about Bradley Cooper. Oh my God.
Dang.
That is... I hadn't read this before. This is spicy. I'm sure Cooper's a decent man, but he needs to look carefully at his first 2 films as a director and understand why the first one, A Star Is Born, works and is very satisfying, and why the second one, Maestro, doesn't work and is supremely hollow. If Cooper understands this, then his third film will be worth waiting for. Wow.
God damn.
That was kind of brutal.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you. And then I also had this actually was kind of the same review I read earlier by somebody else who I follow, who I think whose insight is I think one of the best critic reviewers that I go on personally, Brendan Hodges. And he said the biggest difference between Bradley Cooper and Cillian Murphy's approach to their performances. Cillian Murphy, but for those who are not aware of, played Robert J. Oppenheimer in Oppenheimer. So he says the biggest difference between Bradley Cooper and Cillian Murphy and their approach to their performances this year is that if you told each of them they sounded and behaved just exactly like the real person, only one would take it as a compliment. And he's not talking about Cillian Murphy because, as people know, he doesn't care. He's the kind of guy that just does it to do a job. Like, I'm sure he's uncomfortable that the studio is making him go out and doing these panels and interviews for award season, but he probably isn't going to win Best Actor because he's not the kind of guy that likes to campaign. Whereas Bradley Cooper, he will shake hands, he will kiss babies, he will host parties, and he very clearly wants it. And he's also somebody that has something of a narrative, which he's been nominated a bunch of times. Oh, he was also amazing in Licorice Pizza. I don't know if you saw Licorice Pizza, but he was there for like 5 or 10 minutes, and he was great. But anyway, Brendan Hodges, that was not the review. The actual review that he put out, that I think was just released today. He tweeted, "I really struggled with Maestro. It's all surface affection or affectation and conceptual tricks, deflecting from the complexity of Bernstein's life, genius, and marriage. I went in not knowing much about him, and I left not knowing much more. Beautiful, but as hollow as an empty piano. Maestro often seemed to default to the most obvious approach. As Cooper writes him, Bernstein's life was fragmented and disjointed. Therefore, the film must be. The characters in his life were often distant. Therefore, the camera must be. Too often, it is reductively literal. I'll end by saying I love A Star Is Born. Cooper is a brilliant filmmaker and actor, and it was genuinely artistically brave to jettison everything that made that movie work and try with Maestro. He's not resting on his laurels. Even if it's a miss, I admire the swing. So that's a bit more of a positive end to it, but it's still the same kind of criticism, which is it's flashy, it's in your face, and it may very well be empty.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, of course, there are also reviews who are like praising this film a lot. So it's like, I don't know exactly what I'm getting in here for, you know?
Yeah, that's kind of worrying.
It is, because they're like, because if that's what the movie is that I'm going to see, that's disappointing.
Yeah, for sure.
That's legitimately, because again, like if there's nothing I can't stand more, it's empty films.
For sure. Oh my gosh. I mean, we're kind of going to talk about one that felt kind of empty. So
Yeah. Although we'll get into the specifics of that one when we get into it. So that's Maestro and how the reception it's been getting. I also wanted to discuss quickly where we were with the Oscar. Let me see here. Yes, so I'm talking about the Oscar nominations. Well, not the nominations, but they released shortlists for some of their categories. I also want to say the Critics' Choice. We didn't talk too much last week about their nominations. They're getting dunked on because, and I gotta say, to me, as someone who has defended the Golden Globes for years, not defending them for all the atrocious things that they've done, all the shameless things that they've done, and of course, never defending them for at one point not having a single Black person as a member of their association. That's why, by the way, they were taken off the air for a year, and when they came back, it still didn't work. And they used to be a body of like 90 people. They fired most of them, and now they're a group of 300 people from all over the world. It's a very international group, which is why some of the nominations were different this year, because a lot of international films made a big splash at the Golden Globe nominations, as it kind of should be. So, but I will say, where I've always defended the Globes is they are the only ones that know how to put on a damn good telecast, an entertaining show that you love to watch, and a lot of their winners are different than what the Oscars end up being, which I appreciate, because I love to have different kinds of winners here. Like, for example, in years past, they awarded and keep in mind that they do 2 Best Picture awards a year based on drama or comedy or musical, but they're the ones that gave La La Land Best Picture. The Oscars didn't do that. They also gave Boyhood Best Picture. The Oscars didn't do that. They also awarded Grand Budapest Hotel, got a Best Picture prize. They didn't do that. They also did Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The Oscars didn't do that. And I'm not saying the Oscars were wrong for not following in that direction, but you get the point that I'm saying here, that they award different films and they're given their spotlight. Like last year, The Fabelmans and Banshees got their moment, but that would be the last time that both of those films were really like in the season, whereas other groups would go somewhere else. And I didn't know this myself, but I thought it was pretty extraordinary when I looked at the history of what films won. And did you know that when it came out, I think it must have been 1995, The Lion King won Best Picture here at the Golden Globes.
1981, you said? Or
1995.
Sorry. Okay.
1995, The Lion King won Best Musical at the Golden Globes.
Okay.
Which is extraordinary.
Yeah, for sure.
Because Lion King wasn't even nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars.
No, you said The Lion King, and my mind went to live action. I'm like, wait a minute. What are you talking about?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And a hell no there.
Yeah.
Which also keeps in mind, Lion King, I think, was like one of the biggest movies of that year. How did it not get a Best Picture nomination? That's crazy. But my point is, I think people dunk on the Globes unnecessarily so because of, and not entirely blameless on their part, they would shamelessly nominate films just because, oh, we want that person to come to our party. Like, the big one was The Tourist with Angelina Jolie and Johnny Depp, where no one else liked the movie, but they liked it so much, so they could be at their party. And it kind of blew up in their face because the host that they hired, Ricky Gervais, that year, he didn't hold back. And he was like literally making fun of the Globes and Johnny Depp to their faces for why they were even there at the award show. You have not seen this? I got to share with you that monologue from it was many years ago, but it's hilarious. The look on Johnny Depp's face when Ricky Gervais is just skewering them for even being in the room is unforgettable, which made for unforgettable television, which is kind of the point of these things if you want people to watch. But anyway, that's the Globes. But Critics' Choice, to me, I've always been more, side-eyeing or critical of, because when you and you gotta say, the pundits themselves are even like revealing how they are, because like, well, what happened this year? The Critics' Choice nominated the usuals, and they were attacked or criticized because they don't really represent Critics' Choice. Because like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was one of the most like critically loved films of the year, if you look at the critic score and how many of them liked it. But it did not get into best film. No international films really got into best film either. And it kind of makes you realize that their reputation for many years now has been that more than any other group, the Critics' Choice just wants to be known as the group that predicts the Oscars the most, which I don't know what that gets you in the long run, because I don't know what the strategy there is. That to ensure that people watch your show, which is not a very good show when they do put it on, but it's like people were like, just not just them, but I think everybody should just award the stuff that you like the best. Don't go after the things that you think, oh, we think the Academy likes this, so we're going to go that over what we personally like best, which is phony and fake. And even more so than, because I think the Globes, yes, a lot of times they would nominate things based on who was in them. But a lot of the times they also just went with what they liked. You got to give the Globes at least credit in that department. And even Screen Actors Guild, sometimes they pull stuff that like is surprising, because their best film prize some years doesn't even go to the film that wins at the Oscars. Like I think for one, they gave it to American Hustle one year. I think Hidden Figures won one year. Black Panther won one year. So it's like, but that's different, right? There's a variety. And I think what makes for an exciting award season is variety. So there's that. Anywho, the short lists. So makeup and hairstyling, people were making a fuss over the idea that Guardians 3 was not included in here, because Guardians 3 apparently has the most prosthetics ever in film history. I'll just say this. It's not a surprise to me that it wasn't included in here, because look at where Marvel's name is at these days in the trades. And these people have had an axe to grind against these movies for a long time. It's not a shock to me. I wasn't expecting Guardians to be in here, even though this category is the same category that awarded Suicide Squad back in 2017.
Yeah.
So anyway, what did get in? I shouldn't say what did get in. I should say like what is on the list, because then they'll shrink those down to 5. Beau is Afraid, Ferrari, Golda, Killers of the Flower Moon, The Last Voyage of the Demeter, Maestro, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, and Society of the Snow. That's what is there. So that was the big snub with Guardians 3. This one's more interesting. Score. I gotta say, I'm not gonna say for sure, but I am thinking it's a real possibility we might have our two big animated contenders also get into score. And I gotta say, I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but it's a possibility now, because there have been places where it's been getting, both of them have been getting in, and they both appear on this long list. So for best score, the finalists are American Fiction, American Symphony, Barbie, The Boy and the Heron, Color Purple, Elemental, The Holdovers, Indiana Jones, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Saltburn, Society of the Snow, Spider-Man, and the Zone of Interest. Past Lives not being here is a bit disappointing because that was a really good score. It was more subtle, but it was a really good score. But Boy and the Heron and Spider-Verse should absolutely be nominated in here for a whole host of reasons. Not just because they're both among the best scores of the year, just as independent pieces of music, they should be in this category. But for how they're used in the movie, that double enhances for why they should be in the category. Daniel Pemberton is somebody who is up and coming. Well, not up and coming. He's been around, but this is his big piece of work. He should be in here. But Joe Hisaishi has been around. He's a veteran. He's scored all of Miyazaki's movies. But he's never once been nominated here.
For sure.
He's never once been nominated here. So people were saying Elemental's score was really good. I haven't seen Elemental, but Thomas Newman always delivers a great score. So I have no doubt that Elemental had a great score, but I don't think that gets in over Boy and the Heron or Spider-Verse.
No, yeah. You mentioned Elemental, and I'm like, oh, really? Just because it really wasn't much of a standout for me. But I mean, like, I feel like for me, animated movies have just better scores than any other movies, just because like for them it's a lot. Yeah, you notice them more. They're far more necessary than they are for like live action movies. Because with live action, you can kind of get away with like sound effects as like your score in a sense, or like setting the mood for a scene. Oppenheimer did this for sure a lot in the movie. So yeah, for animated movies, scores are far more noticeable, stand out more for me, I guess.
People, I don't know when it comes out. I think it's in January, but Society of the Snow is an international film by J.A. Bayona. Really good director. Although he should be forgiven, of course. He did direct Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom, but the direction wasn't the problem with that movie. It was the script. Now it's Colin Trevorrow. So just be clear about that. But his other movies are really good by J.A. Bayona. But that, that score by Michael Giacchino might get in here. He may be a threat, although Michael Giacchino, I don't think he didn't get in for the Batman last year, did he?
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so.
No. Well, so there goes that. Poor Things I hear has a great score. What makes this category interesting is that Ludwig Göransson has already won, and he may win again with Oppenheimer. He for sure is going to get in. Also, the score for Flower Moon is very subtle, but it's in a lot of moments in the movie, it's sort of like, that humming. That was Robbie Robertson, who passed away this year at the age of 80. So, but he's been getting it everywhere, so maybe a posthumous nomination. There is a threat by somebody here. We should talk about the elephant in the room. I don't know how big of a threat it is, and it would be pretty annoying because not that he doesn't deserve it, but I just think it's more to the fact that there are much better scores than this. John Williams. Are they going to nominate him again? And sometimes he misses. I want to be clear. He doesn't always get in. Like, one thing I never got is that he was nominated for 2 of the 3 recent Star Wars movies, but the best one wasn't one of those nominations. He didn't get nominated for The Last Jedi, which I think was his best work. But the other 2 got in. Crazy is yeah.
I don't think for Indiana Jones, right? That's the one you're talking about, or
yeah.
It doesn't deserve to be going.
He got in last year for The Fablemans. So they don't need to nominate him again.
Yeah,
but also Indiana. That wasn't a great score.
It wasn't good. I can barely remember it. Only besides the
main theme. Yeah.
That's the only thing that stood out. But I mean, Peter mentioned it best when you guys talking about the original ones. But like the score for that movie, like it makes the entire movie basically. Like that's the thing that drives you to the next scene. So
Right.
and it just didn't do it with this one.
No, it wasn't a great score. It wasn't a great movie. But it would be really upsetting if this got in. And let's face it, if there's one that's getting cut, it's one of the animated ones.
Yeah.
That would be particularly enraging. So that's where that is. Original song. All 3 Barbie songs continued on to this list, which is interesting because only 2 can get in according to their rules, which is stupid. If they're that good, they should all be getting in. But whatever. The 2 Color Purple songs made it in here. I Am Dreaming somehow made it in to the short list for Spider-Verse.
It's good.
But was not included here is actually kind of surprising. Well, to a certain extent. Yet another indication of how much Disney has fallen. Not a single song from Wish is even on the short list. Not a single song from Wish, and it makes you wonder if not a single song from Wish is in here. Is it even gonna get into animated feature film? That's a big sign of weakness.
Yeah. And honestly, though, it doesn't really deserve to.
Right.
Sorry.
But no, but it's surprising because a Disney movie usually gets in here.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying. No songs from Wonka.
Come on.
Not one. And to be fair, though, I don't know how many people saw or heard the song again because of when the movie was released and everything, but it looks like they only submitted one song.
Which one?
From A World of Your Own.
Oh, that's perfect. I mean,
which is great, but it's not on here.
Yeah,
that's really disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
But what was hilarious and kind of like a phew, Peaches was nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, thank God.
Honestly, thank God, because it was getting everywhere, and I'm like, are we gonna do this? Like, come on.
Yeah, don't. Come on. Just you don't have to listen to the internet for this one. It's fine.
Yeah. So some pretty surprising snubs. Hunger Games got one song in. I haven't heard it, but it's in there. So yeah. I would have liked to have gotten the song from Boy and the Heron that plays in the credits. It's called Spinning Globe. It's Japanese, but it's a really good song. And then anything else? Oh, I should probably talk about visual effects because that one's interesting. Oppenheimer's not going to be in here because it was eliminated early on. Like, because there was a long list. This is the short list. The long list had movies like Quantumania, but it did not include Oppenheimer. And I got to tell you, it's because this branch particularly is still upset that a small film like Ex Machina with amazing visual effects defeated Mad Max and Star Wars The Force Awakens back in 2016, the Academy Awards. They were like, no. So from now on, what they made sure was to have as many big budgeted films in there, which I don't know what message that sends to the studios who are having a hard time right now with their films and throwing because of how much money they threw at it. Just not a good situation overall. So what were the movies that were in the short list? Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Society of the Snow, Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire, Poor Things, Napoleon, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Godzilla -1, and The Creator. To me, there's like one clear winner here. I mean, if you're going to seriously award what's the best of the best, in what universe does Godzilla -1 not win?
Yeah.
In a cakewalk. Like, it is just easily. But like, should Indiana Jones be in this?
No.
I don't think. Like, I don't.
No.
No. Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
Although, but it wasn't really effects heavy, and not obvious, I should say, not an obvious effects heavy movie. God help us if Rebel Moon gets in here, which is, I don't understand what's going on, because I was told it was one of the ugliest movies of the year. Which, by the way, we can talk about that real quick right now. You're watching Rebel Moon.
Yeah.
Why? Why are you and Peter wasting your time? I'm just like, I shouldn't be the person that's like, why are you wasting your time on something that you're in? I get there's curiosity in there, but like, there's so many movies to watch right now. Why are you wasting time with somebody who clearly has indicated that they're not ever going to address a lot of the problems that people have with him, because he seemingly has bought into his own fame by his cultists? That like he's the best ever and he can do no wrong, and he's just gonna continue to double down and quadruple down on all of his worst tendencies. I'm sorry, like, to me, all of Zack Snyder's movies that I've seen have been, he has never made a less than terrible film.
No, yeah. I mean, you mentioned it, curiosity. You know, I just want to kind of like, I want to watch all the movies and all that, and I want to be fair with Zack Snyder himself, though. Like, I just want to like really to get my thoughts about his kind of filmmaking and all that. To me, as so far, I don't see it as ugly. I kind of thought it was interesting, some of the visuals that he did, and that's always to me the most interesting thing about his directing, is that he always does make something kind of interesting and all. Looks interesting. I don't know if I said it right. But yeah, so far it's just not good. It's just so much exposition. I don't really care about the characters that they're bringing in. Like,
and you know what you're watching isn't even like the real version, because they're gonna release a 4-hour version, a 4-hour director's cut version.
Yeah,
of this on Netflix.
And it's just, I can already tell though, it's just gonna be more slow mo, stupid shots. Like, because I'm looking at it and I'm kind of like, what is there to add though? Like, I feel like you already added what you wanted about these characters.
I mean, why did we get a 4-hour version of Justice League? We watched a 4-hour version of Justice League. That was insane.
I know. And I remember like seeing that movie and just being like, you could have just cut this and turned it in. Like, I kind of gave a little praise to his Justice League and all that, but that's mostly because I got pissed off what Joss Whedon did to his movie.
Yeah. There's more baggage in that situation, and so I think all of us were like, even though none of us liked it, we were like, good for you for getting your version of the movie released. You know, that was a nice moment. That was a rare win for a filmmaker to have, and that's why we celebrated it. But we didn't like the movie at all.
Yeah, but I can already tell, like, if it's going to release a 4-hour version of Rebel Moon, I know it's going to have the same problems as Justice League, which is you needed a fucking editor to cut shit out, make things go faster. Slow-mo shots aren't cool. The only time I actually enjoyed slow-mo shots was in Immortals. Do you remember that movie? It had what's his name? Guy who played Superman.
Which Superman?
Henry Cavill.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah, it had Henry Cavill in it, like one of his, I think, first big films. But like, there was just a moment though where, like, you know, the gods were fighting titans, and like they would move fast when they're like about to hit someone, but then as soon as they hit him, you know, the bad guys would go like move in slow mo. Like if they hit him in the head, they start flipping. The flip is slow mo, but the gods are moving fast still, like normal.
Okay.
And so like it was really cool shots. It was pretty dynamic and all that. That was the only time I ever liked slow mo. Anything else, I don't really care about slow mo shots, unless if it's like, you know, someone underestimating the main character and they punch him in the face. Then it's like, okay, cool, yeah, it's a funny thing to do. But anything else, I don't really care for slow mo. So stop it. It's fucking useless.
Yeah, Peter said that this movie was Zack Snyder leaning into his worst tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
He said it made him miss BVS, and he said that this is one of the worst films he's ever seen.
I don't know if it's like the worst of the year. Still gonna have
I
to
mean, there's
debate on that,
competition for that. I mean, I would say the two worst films that I've seen this year are The Flash and Quantumania.
I mean, if it's those ones, yeah, I think Rebel Moon would probably be worse than those for sure.
Well, that did not require that much thought, did it? You're not even done watching it.
I know.
That's hilarious. But I mean, also kind of exactly. I mean, this is the movie made by the guy who is responsible for why right now Aquaman is not doing very well. Is also the reason why The Flash didn't do very well, or Shazam, or any of those other films. This is the person who's responsible, and it's just amazing to me how we're living in this culture, right? Where, you know, we have such high standards and are hypercritical of certain people, and just so ready to blame them for one little misstep, like Kathleen Kennedy or Rachel Zegler or Brie Larson, right? But and even J.J. Abrams, have you noticed he's not been working at all since, and I wonder why that is. But Zack Snyder is there's perhaps no person more responsible for why the DCEU is as of right now dead than Zack Snyder. And yet somehow he's been able to walk away scot-free and continue to make his movies, and they've not been great.
And what pisses me off too is like the people, you know, when he was making the DC movies, they were just kind of like, yeah, we're not liking them and all that. It's just they're kind of boring and blah blah blah. But you know, I just like they're not being as mean as they would be as if it was Rian Johnson or J.J. Abrams or anything like that. And and I know the reason why is because he's trying to go as accurate as he can to the comics, and he's not being woke. But then Rebel Moon comes out, and it's for one thing, the writer, I think, of this the script writer, she wrote some kind of comic and that people hated and all that. But then also the lead is a female, and now they're like, oh, he's going woke and all that. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, this is like, now you want to like talk shit about the kind of movies that he's making? Like, this is the one time I wish you would have done this before. It's just so annoying that like now they want to like talk shit about him just because he's going woke and all that. But it's like, he's been doing bad from the beginning, guys. Come on. And again, I'll always bring this up, but like, he literally told people to shut the fuck up when he like talked about Batman killing people and all that, and people were pissed about that, or that when Superman killed someone, there was just his response to it was shut the fuck up. And like, really, and you don't give him shit for that?
It's just the hypocrisy, right?
Mm-hmm.
The hypocrisy. Yeah. That's why I try not to really engage with Zack Snyder. Because I just feel like I've seen enough to know I'm never going to enjoy a movie that he makes. So I just don't bother with it. But I understand your inclination for like wanting to be fair and wanting to see as many things as possible. I get it. I just feel like I don't have the most time in the world, and I want to watch things that that I think take priority, that have a better chance, I think, of me liking them. But maybe I'll catch it, because I mean, there's also the reason why I haven't seen The Little Mermaid, because I know what it is. But if we're gonna do a reaction on it, I guess maybe we can do a reaction on Rebel Moon. Oh God, don't quote me on that. No, forget it. No, you're like no.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen half of it and don't need to see it again.
Okay. All right, guys, let's get to some movies. Wonka. Yes. I said last week that I completely adored the film. First, I also said that I adored Paul King's previous movies. Paddington and Paddington 2 were incredible. But this movie, to me, was something of a surprise in that I was... Maybe in retrospect, I shouldn't have been, considering how much I ended up liking the Paddington movies, but I was so arrested by its charm. I was in the film from the very beginning. From the second Timmy starts singing, I'm like, we're in. And it kind of didn't let me go.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this is the best musical ever. I don't think these are the best songs ever. But you know what? I think what was here was more than just good enough. I thought it was really good. And I thought we had committed performances. And we had really good songs. Wonderful staging of the musical numbers, which is hard to do and hard to get right. It looked amazing. The production design. I loved the color palette of it. And I was moved by it. It was moved by its charm. I was moved by its whimsy, and it kind of got me at the end with what was going on here.
Nice.
To me, it's one of my favorite movies of the year, easily, and I have, of course, been listening to the soundtrack many, many times now. So yeah, David.
No, yeah, I love this movie. I mentioned it before, like the director, directed Paddington 2. I knew I was gonna get into this movie, loving it because of him. And yeah, Timothy, I know I make some complaints about Timothy, about his Wonka. I was wrong.
You liked him?
I liked him. It was his own performance and everything. And I'm very happy about that too, because I'm glad that I didn't have to compare him like at all. Not even once did it Gene Wilder pop up in my mind like, this would have been better. No, nothing like that. This is his own performance. He did an amazing job. He's a great singer. I don't know if there was any auto tune on it, but like,
I don't think so. No, he has a background in theater.
Yeah.
From what I understand, and people were complaining, not complaining, but people were like dismissing him as like not having the best voice. Oh no, he's not the best singer, but he sings great in this.
Yeah,
you don't have to have the best voice all the time.
No, yeah.
Is Ryan Gosling the best singer?
No, but like,
does he do a great job in La La Land and Barbie? Yes,
for sure.
So
yeah, it just depends on what you're trying to do. And this one, he didn't need to give Hugh Jackman performance in Les Mis. Like, he didn't need to do that.
Hugh Jackman's a fucking beast. When it comes to musicals.
Yeah, he didn't need to do that.
He did with Les Mis. There was a song where there was a lot of the songs where it felt like I was watching an opera, which is how deep he was belting those keys.
Yeah, he did it. Yeah, Timothy didn't need to do that. He just needed to be fun. He needed just to, like I said, just basically that. He just needed to be fun, kind of crazy, kooky, and all that. And he really brought that out. Yeah, I love this character so much. And just to compare it to Wish and all that. Wish, the songs were not stand out to me. The characters weren't stand out. I love the characters in Wonka. All of them just fucking unique and funny in their own way. Like, I love them all, and I love that they became sort of a family together in that little moment.
You can tell this is one of Paul King's strengths, is a deep ensemble, because that's what made Paddington the movies really good in the first place, was because it had like a large cast of characters, a family, if you will. And you see that here again in Wonka. And I was surprised too, because usually in films like this, like, oh, okay, that's cute and everything. But no, they stick around, and it's rare because you don't see it too often anymore. A lot of big budgeted films neglect, to have this kind of component where you keep the ensemble involved in the story and in the narrative and involved with the characters. And you are right. They're each distinct. When you first meet them, I'm like, okay, I don't know how much I'm going to care about you. But by the end, I'm like, wow. Like, I kind of like all of you. Yeah. And that's pretty impressive. I was so surprised by that.
Especially like the main friend in the group, her ending.
Oh,
Noodle. I cried at the end, not just with her, but also with Timothy's character, Wonka.
That's the part that got me, with Sally Hawkins as the mom.
Yes.
That wave was like,
I know. I want to see her in more things, man.
Just like Sally Hawkins is great.
For sure. And to keep comparing with Wish, like I said, the main songs of these the songs were just so stand out. I cannot stop listening to was it World of Your Own?
A World of Your Own.
And then very surprising how they used was it Pure Imagination? Yeah. Like, when they came up, I was like, oh, this is so great. I actually, like, again, I still cried.
Yeah,
in that moment. I love the way they sort of reused it in a sense.
Yeah.
So
It's a great version of it for sure. Because at first it's more of like the softer ballad approach,
Mm-hmm.
and then as it ramps up to the finale, it's the most upbeat I think I've ever heard that song. I haven't heard that song in that key, but it was great. Even how they handled Hugh Grant Oompa Loompa was actually like surprising because that's the part where you're like, how is but he's not really in it as much.
Yeah.
But I actually like the effect. I don't think it ever looked bad.
No, yeah. I thought, like, hey, he looked good the entire time, and he was hilarious.
He actually was. What's like all of the songs though, I think do such a big service to the film. I don't think this film would work as well without those songs. And I think, yeah, they're all, I think, get their moments to shine.
Mm-hmm.
A World of Your Own was so magical, right? Just like with the store opening and then having people, and I'm like, fuck, can I go to that store? I
I
would go to that
know.
store, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and people were so happy too. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, go ahead.
Another movie actually I kind of complained about was the Matilda.
The musical.
The musical. My biggest complaint is that when certain musical numbers, it would take you out of the world. Like you would just like, if you're in the field, the next moment you're like in the clouds or something. Like it just or you're actually like on the stage or something, and completely takes me out, and I hated it. Like I was kind of like, no, you already have like a fantastical world here, stay in it, and this is what Wonka did. Like,
right.
It literally put you in one place, and he used it as much as he could, and that's what made the song stand out.
The sequence in the middle of the movie, you've never had chocolate like this. Perfect example of what you're talking about. But even they used the villain motif into a song, Sweet Tooth. Mm-hmm. Have you got a sweet tooth? That whole number was like, I loved it.
Yeah.
I thought it was very good. The villains getting their own number.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Olivia Colman was also in here, and that part with them, the Mrs. Scrubbit, I believe that's what her name is. Their whole thing was so ridiculous and yet funny.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like this is the best family movie in a long time, and it also happens to be a musical. And I'm really happy for the fact that it's actually doing really well at the box office. And I think that in both of the screenings that I had, people are responding really positive to the movie, in spite of it being a musical. And I hope it does give people, I don't know, the opportunity to perhaps rework their thinking on how open or not they are to musicals. Because I think in some ways, because of how little we've been getting of them lately, you kind of get the sense that maybe that they're going to go away like other kind of films, like family movies and comedies and rom-coms. And it's like, I don't want that to happen. I really don't. And I think with Wonka, it shows you how much you can get out of this genre of movie.
Yeah.
And it totally works as its own thing. You don't need to watch Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory to enjoy this movie. In fact, I think it may even be better to not think about that movie while you're watching this one, because from what I understand, people who've had problems with Wonka have those problems because they're directly comparing it to Gene Wilder and that whole version of the character, which in a lot of ways is kind of really different.
Yeah, for sure. But also, I'm very curious about like someone who's never even seen Willy Wonka watch this movie and like see how they think. But also, you mentioned like hoping
I called it a better Mary Poppins movie than Mary Poppins Returns. This Wonka movie.
Yeah, for sure.
It feels closer to what a Mary Poppins would be like than a Willy Wonka.
What I'm hoping that people kind of get more of this, at least for studios, it's like, or studios or directors or something, but like just make something more crazy, man.
Yeah.
Like, Paddington the Paddington movies, they're not musicals or anything, but like they're just crazy movies. They're cartoonish in a sense, and like it's okay to do that. Like they're fun and do that for families and all. You don't, as much as we love animated movies, like they don't all need to be animated movies in order for it to be for families.
And to give animation its credit, it's not a genre, it's a medium, and there are a lot of genres within animation. To say that every animated film is for kids is false.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at Boy and the Heron.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't qualify that as a purely kids movie.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. But it also it makes you think about this as well. In that Wonka and Barbie were both movies that really were greenlit because they were part of an intellectual property. And I think in a lot by the same studio, mind you, Warner Brothers. And I feel like when both of these things were announced, nobody in the world was enthusiastic about these things. And yet somehow they ended up being good. And the problem with how this business works is the executives are going to think that it was them, that they were the ones that were able to like put this piece together and make it work, when they really are the least essential part of why it was a success or why it even works in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
It's because you give it to, honestly, directors and you let them fucking direct and make them their own thing. You give them to Paul King and Greta Gerwig, and guess what? They made Paul King and Greta Gerwig movies.
Mm-hmm.
Go figure. That's what you do. You don't just give it to them, but then say, psych, we're going to come in and like chop it up. Aside from Zack Snyder, the other big, people who are at fault here for why the DCEU is dead was the Warner Brothers executives.
For sure. It was for sure the Warner Brothers executives, just because they were trying to rush things up. That was the biggest fuck up.
Yeah. So anything else to say on Wonka?
No. Go and watch it.
All right.
Give it all the money.
Yes, and I'm happy that people are enjoying it. Next, we have Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which is kind of a funny title because I guess the Lost Kingdom could basically be another name for the DCEU, right?
Yeah.
I just realized that when I read it, I'm like, oh, that's funny. This is directed by James Wan, who also directed the first one. The tide is turning. Black Manta, still driven by the need to avenge his father's death and wielding the power of the mythic Black Trident, will stop at nothing to take Aquaman down once and for all. To defeat him, Aquaman must turn to his imprisoned brother Orm, the former king of Atlantis, to forge an unlikely alliance in order to save the world from irreversible destruction. Okay. I'm gonna say this. I don't know where to start. Let me see. You want to start with this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this wasn't that good. Before I went to this movie, I saw someone. No, actually, in the middle of the movie, I was looking at my phone, so that should tell you something. But I saw one guy. He posted his list of DCEU movies, and I saw where he put Aquaman 2. He put it right below Wonder Woman 84. And I was halfway through the movie in this, and I was like, "Whoa, hold on! There's some things better than 84 in this. Come on!" And then the movie kept going and going, and I'm like, "It's almost a tie." I'm like, which one should be better? So yeah, that should tell you. I think the things that do make it better than 84, though, Momoa stand out. He's hilarious. I do like his character. I think he's funny, and I do like what they did with him and Namor. No, yeah, Namor, his brother.
Orm.
Oh, Orm.
Namor is the MCU guy.
Wow. Whatever.
No, it's okay. I don't care either way.
Yeah. Orm, okay. Ocean Master, that's the one I for sure remember. I like what they did with their characters. They were both pretty funny together. Uh, and I did find that interesting that like they were both playing very opposite characters, but
Yes.
opposite performances, honestly too. And like it was stand out. Cool action scenes. I don't mind the CGI. They've all been bad before, but this one though, like it's big. Not of it was gonna be great, but like it still had like a style to it that made it a little bit fun, especially the whole world of it all. That's about it.
Yeah. I will say that ultimately, I don't necessarily will defend this movie as much as I will defend other comic book films that I think got a bad rap. I will say, though, if you didn't like the first Aquaman movie, there's no way in hell you're going to like this one. So don't bother wasting your time, first of all. But I also have to say that for those of us who did like the first Aquaman movie, I legitimately think that the first Aquaman film is a strong film, a really good movie. In large part because it knows what it is. And I think it also comes back here somewhat in the second one, not a whole lot. But in the first film, you do get that sense that this is just big, dumb fun. And more than anything, it honestly was a good time. It's one of those where it's like, I don't know if I'd call this a really good movie, but it was a really good time. So that's what the first Aquaman movie was. But I genuinely liked Aquaman. And I think to me, it was one of the stronger DC films at the time because there were no good DC films at the time for the most part. That's why I think it made such a big impression. And genuinely, walking out of the movie, I liked everybody in the movie. As a matter of fact, I was in the middle of rewatching it right before we began doing this podcast. But I'm really happy that I went back and started watching it because it made me just like, whoa. Because I was in the first like 20 or 30 minutes and I'm like, this is already way better than... Okay, so this one. Everything you said that were positives here, I agree with it completely. I think Momoa is hilarious. I think Patrick Wilson, who plays his brother, they ended up actually carrying the film pretty nicely. I was entertained by both of them. I also will say, I don't know where you land on Randall Park in this movie. He didn't really annoy me in the way that I'm sure other films using him would have annoyed me for whatever reason. I just thought it kind of was hilarious. That's strong. I think it was kind of giggle funny. Him being around a lot. I like the sets. I like the visual effects. I like the costumes. To me, I think it's adequate. It's an okay sequel. I don't think it's atrocious in the way that other DC... I'm comparing it directly to other DC projects, to be clear with you. It is clearly a step down from the first movie, but I think there's enough bits and pieces here that still made it kind of fun. Like, one of my favorite moments in this movie was... and I'm sorry, and no one's going to watch it anyway, so I'm just going to tell you. In the middle of the movie, when Patrick Wilson and Jason Momoa are infiltrating the island base, when they're like dumping the orichalcum into the air, and Randall Park like stops them and begs them to join them, and I felt it coming. One thing, my biggest laugh in the whole movie was when like they're mid conversation and then it just booms, and then it just like. Which the first Aquaman movie did so many times, but I loved here. I mean, Peter and I just immediately burst into laughter because I love that move. And then Momoa said, "I hate when that happens." To brilliant comedic effects. So you think like that's why ultimately I'll say that I had a good time with Aquaman and Lost Kingdom overall, but it's not going to be a film I'm going to really revisit ever again. But I think why I vibed with it was because I vibed with James Wan's goofiness. I think James
Yes.
Wan understood what character this was and what the whole vibe it was going for. And I think that stayed the same here. Even down to that underwater Jabba the Hutt sequence, which was what it was and everything.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, though, you do get a sense of what was. I mean, it's nice, right? I guess watching these characters again, but you do kind of feel like, well, but by the time we get to the end, did we really need this? It felt kind of weightless. It felt empty in the way where it's like, I don't know. It feels like for however good the first one was, this should have hit a lot harder than it did. So I understand that kind of feeling. At the same time, I do want to say it's very much not fair. But you can say the same about, Shazam! Fury of the Gods. It's not fair that a lot of Marvel movies that, quite frankly, are not much better, do a lot better at the box office just because they're Marvel movies and not DC movies. By no stretch of the imagination is this the worst comic book movie of the year. There's at least one worse, actually two, maybe even three. I gotta say, I don't know. I think I was entertained with the Marvels, but that was a different situation.
At least with Aquaman 2, there was a character arc that was there from the beginning to the end.
That was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't like with the Marvels, it was just, how the one scene does always stand out. It was when they were getting all the scrolls out of the planet, and Captain Marvel was like, we gotta save who we can. And you think that this is gonna be like some emotional moment later on that, like, hey, you can't save everyone, blah blah blah. Goes nowhere. Just gone after that. That's all you get. This one, though, beginning to end, Aquaman's talking to his dad, and he's just like, hey, remember, family's family, blah blah blah. Cut to the end. They're brothers. They call each other brothers. Like, that's it. It's simple. And even like the whole what was it, climate change or global warming type of thing, like beginning to end, they stuck it out. Was it a clean landing? No. Far from it. But like, we got there. So it's just that, I think that the hollowness of it is just kind of like, I don't really see why we needed this.
That's the
like
thing,
you mentioned,
right?
it.
Yeah.
And it also just almost feels like a complete ending that's just too soon. Like, I really wish they would have stuck something out with this, kept it going. But sadly,
that was never going to be an option.
It was never going to be an option, yeah, for sure.
And it's not its own doing. It's out of like where this universe is at. I will say, I'm going to share with you right now on direct message. I went in and looked at all the DC films, DCEU, because this is the last movie in the DC extended universe. And I got to say, this probably is one of the most embarrassing franchises ever. Maybe the most embarrassing one because of how long it lasted. But if you see there, really only 6 or 7 of those movies I actually cared for. The rest, I'm like, I do not give a fuck. Yeah. And be honest about that. I'll even just say right now, looking at where I land with the DCEU at number 16, I ranked Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. To me, legitimately, that is still one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. There's like nothing at all that's redeemable about that movie. It is just dour and depressing, incoherent, incompetent. And that one movie is responsible for why the rest of them didn't have a chance. John Campea said back in 2013 or 14, I believe, that if DC delivered a disappointing Batman v Superman film, that it would take them over 10 years to recover. And it seems that prediction has come completely true.
How long has it been now?
Well, it was released in 2016. So 7 years.
I mean, we're almost close.
Yeah.
So.
And the DCEU is dead, to be clear.
Yeah.
I mean, this universe is dead. It's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So it couldn't even live 10 years after that. At 15, I put Suicide Squad, which I don't know what more I can say that has already been said, with that one. At 14, I put in Justice League, the theatrical version Justice League.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I think it has some moments in it that are actually pretty good in comparison to what Zack Snyder would do. But it still was just like, what the fuck am I watching?
Yeah.
With Justice League. Then at number 13, I put in Zack Snyder's Justice League, which really is not much better. It's just it is more complete as a vision, but it's like, I mean, it still ended with Batman saying, "I'm gonna fucking kill you" to the Joker, and I'm like, okay, what are we doing here? And number 12, keep up the Zack Snyder love fest, Man of Steel. Don't care for it, not in the slightest.
It just makes me sad to watch it because Henry Cavill has so much potential.
He did,
and that is just getting so unlucky.
But did Ben Affleck not have a lot of potential? Did Gal Gadot not have a lot of potential? Like Ezra, like Miller, like a lot of these people, the casting in this DCEU was brilliant. But then
the thing though is that they had their own movies. They stood out. I feel like Henry Cavill never got that chance to like really stand out and really like.
Whose fault is that?
Yeah.
Whose fault is that?
Mm-hmm, for sure.
11, I put Black Adam. That was terrible. That was genuinely terrible. And then right next to it, number 10, The Flash.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, that just goes to show you how bad this franchise was. Where a movie like The Flash is at number 10.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta say, maybe to be fair, I mean, I don't care about any of these, but depending on the day, maybe The Flash should be lower than Black Adam. I don't know.
I'm honestly surprised Black Adam's that high.
Well, because I don't care about any of these. They're all bad to me.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder Woman 1984 at number 9. Yeah. Birds of Prey at number 8. That one was okay.
Yeah, it was fine.
It was okay. It was fine. Wonder Woman people like, and I'll say it's good, but that third act is dog shit.
Yeah.
That third act kind of completely, the whole film falls apart because the first two acts are actually pretty good. And then we get to the third act and it's like, we're back.
Mm-hmm.
We're back to where we were. And I'll say I enjoyed the third act of Aquaman 2 more than I enjoyed the third act of Wonder Woman. So that's why I put Wonder Woman at 7 and The Lost Kingdom at 6. And I genuinely just vibed with Lost Kingdom more than I did Wonder Woman. Then at 5, I put in Blue Beetle. That was good. That was genuinely good. 4, Aquaman. 3, Shazam. 2, Shazam! Fury of the Gods. And then 1, The Suicide Squad. But if I'll technically say this, Letterboxd doesn't have Peacemaker because it's a TV show. If I were to put Peacemaker on this list, I'd put it at number 1.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'd put that at number 1 above anything else, and then the rest would go on as follows. But it's like the legacy of these films will just be disappointment, disaster, and ruin.
Mm-hmm.
It is a story of just a never-ending stream of bad decision after bad decision. From the decision to make Zack Snyder make a trilogy of movies that featured your main freaking characters, and then him like fumbling the ball so bad. Like, whoever would have expected the films that he made in DC would be as bad as they were? And because they were that bad, the rest of the films, no matter how good, had no chance. And then, of course, the quality was like inconsistent, radically. Like, just it could go from amazing to terrible. Yeah, I mean, it's a shame because there was some stuff that worked here and it could have gone on more, but it just feels like um I don't I don't know what's happened. I just think they need to have a team there that can kind of manage things, but I also don't want that because I've seen what that's happened with what that's done to Marvel, and that's clearly what's hurting it now. I'll just say that it it was a colossal mistake to have released 4 DC films in 1 year. Not a single one of them was profitable. They were all bombs. Like, that's fucking terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm happy it's out of the way with now, and I'm hoping that people are gonna come back when Superman Legacy comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm sorry to say, that movie is genuinely going to be good.
Yeah.
I would even say great. Like, that's the level that James Gunn operates on. You know, I don't expect a less than great movie with James Gunn, especially when it comes to comic book stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, it is a long way away. July 2025, still well over a year and a half away, but that is very important. That film is going to really determine, and it's going to be a reset. And I do hope genuinely that people come back for that film. And you think that they would because it's a Superman movie, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any thoughts that you wanted to offer, David? Because I think you yourself, I think, are a much bigger DC fan than I, and so you know a lot of these characters. To you, what does it mean to look back at the legacy of the DCEU?
I'm honestly more so sad that there wasn't much of a competition for Marvel. You know, like, we really thought, oh, okay, they got their Superman movie. Okay, cool. Let's make this stand out. Let's make this like great, and let's build up to Justice League, and, like, you know, let's see which one's the best. You know, I really would have liked that competition. In terms of the quality of these movies, I really wish they would have just given up on their whole Justice League universe, and stuck with the good ones that they had, like Aquaman and Shazam, because you really could have kept Shazam going for far longer than you could have. Like, I get it, and other people were saying, you know, well, the kids are going to be aging up and all that, blah, blah, blah. It's like, fine, that's fine. Like, keep it going. Just because they're not going to be kids, that doesn't mean they're not going to learn anything or something like that. Age them up, bring in other teen superheroes. You could have brought in Raven. You know, she's not going to be a Shazam character or anything like that, but bring her in, that's your kid. You know? Like, you could have kept it going and going and going. Make some kind of Justice League movie out of it, and just bring in Henry Cavill, Wonder Woman to the side every once in a while or something. I don't know. But I mean, there's always going to be the thing. They didn't take full advantage of what they had. Even if it wasn't going to bleed into a big universe and all that, you still could have made something out of it. Could have brought something back from it. And so that was definitely the biggest disappointment.
Yeah, if anything, look, what was very obviously what should have happened was, before getting to movies like Batman versus Superman or the Justice League, You should have just had individual standalone films. A Batman film, an Aquaman film, a Wonder Woman film, a Superman sequel, before getting to those team-up movies. That's what Marvel did. You should have focused on the individual films first before you went and did all these team-up things. And it ended up, backfiring on them to the point where they never could have recovered.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think to me, and I've long said this, to me, I'll never forget when I saw the returns for Justice League back in 2017. I think I was at a Home Depot or something. I was looking at my phone for the results and everything. And to me, that was the moment when I realized there was no coming back. That was the end. Justice League, a Justice League movie, only opened to $90 million or so in its opening weekend domestic, which would later get its ass kicked by Thor Ragnarok. When you had those returns, after, by the way, coming off of Batman v Superman, which itself couldn't even get to $1 billion, that was the moment where the decision should have been made that they needed to jettison this. Keep what was working. Like, if anything, the quickest thing is, because I know at that point in 2018, they were going to have Aquaman come out. So what they should have done was cancel everything else, do your Flash movie, do your Flashpoint situation, and then reset the game with new actors and make it completely removed from the Snyderverse. The Snyderverse was never popular.
Mm-hmm.
It killed DC. You have to also keep in mind where we are right now in 2023 with DC films doesn't just extend to DC films. This is basically the embodiment of the prediction I made back in 2016 when Peter and I reviewed on the Barely News Crew Suicide Squad, which was, if DC continued to make really bad superhero films, it's not only going to damage the brand DC Comics, it's going to damage all comic book movies. And I think that's where we are. And to be fair, they're not alone in why comic book films are where they are right now. Marvel has its fair share of blame to go around, especially lately. But it's come to the point where DC films, no one's interested in them at all anymore because they've been burned too many times. They've gone to the movies, which is why, Marvel films these days are not doing very well, because they themselves have gone to the point now where they've been burned too many times, So, yeah, all comic book films, except for two, I think, underperformed severely. But the DC films underperformed more dramatically than the Marvel movies did because DC's been burning their audiences longer than the MCU has, which is why you were seeing numbers this week that said that Aquaman was tracking behind the Marvels. Well, because both brands are kind of in the toilet right now, but one's deeper in the toilet than the other one, basically is what it comes down to. But overall, audiences are just not vibing with comic book movies anymore. But why? Because both of the main studios have been floundering for years now. And most of them have been mediocre. Some have been truly awful. So, which is why those other kind of movies that we talked about that don't no longer get made anymore, like family movies or rom-coms or comedies, in large part why they kind of went extinct as a genre was because too many bad ones came out.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of destroyed everything. So that's kind of where we are. And you can't help but wonder and worry a little bit about how much this DCEU, this collection of 16 films, damaged the DC brand, damaged the profitability of DC Comics characters. You really could not have, no one could have predicted the amount of devastation that Warner Brothers would be left with the decision to like do a cinematic universe of DC Comics characters. Like, it was a no-brainer. You know, this was supposed to be like an easy like printing machine, and yet it was probably the single biggest disaster of this century.
Yeah.
And we didn't even mention the fact that all of the talent involved, save for a couple, their careers were seriously damaged by participating in these movies. Like, we'll probably never see Ezra Miller again. Now, that's a different situation. Gal Gadot's career is not very good. Ben Affleck had to literally go into rehab in the middle of these movies. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to leave it there, guys. We're going to close. Any last thoughts, David?
Oh, I forgot to mention something about Percy Jackson. Bear McCreary is doing the score for that show.
Oh, is he?
Fantastic.
Of course.
Oh my gosh.
Of course it is.
He is working overtime in that show right there. I can just tell, like, music is just blasting through every single second of that show. It's amazing.
That's beautiful to hear. I love Bear McCreary.
Mm-hmm.
But we're gonna go ahead and end it off there, guys. We may have some other stuff that drops on the channel, on the feeds, because we will be doing things, but we just don't know when they're gonna come out. But it looks like this may be the last show of the year. So I want to thank you all for tuning in to us for another year, 2023. Kind of flew by, I gotta be honest with you guys. Kind of flew by faster than I would have liked, but it is what it is. And also, we're not going anywhere anytime soon. We're going to be coming back in 2024 with much more. That's where we are. Red Spotlight, keeping our spotlight for more content and more every single Sunday. Thank you, David. Thank you all for tuning in. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.